Shriya Shah-Klorfine was born in Kathmandu, Nepal, on February 17, 1979. For a child growing up in the Kathmandu Valley, the Himalayas are not just a geographical feature, they are a constant, almost mythical presence on the horizon. Her childhood was spent surrounded by the living majesty of Mount Everest, a peak the locals call Sagamatha, the goddess of the sky. The mountain was a part of her world, a symbol of ultimate achievement. That abstract presence became a concrete ambition when, at 9 years old, she took a helicopter trip with her parents. As the aircraft ascended, the sprawling city gave way to foothills, and then, suddenly, the colossal form of Everest filled her view. Her parents explained that reaching its summit was one of the most difficult things a human could do. For most, such a warning would be a deterrent. For young Shriya, it was an invitation. In that moment, a seed was planted. The idea of ascending the highest mountain in the world became more than a fleeting thought. It became her lifelong ambition. Life, however, soon took a different path. When she was just 10 years old, her father passed away, a profound loss that prompted a move with her mother to the bustling metropolis of Mumbai, India. The world of snow-capped peaks was replaced by the energy of a vibrant, sprawling city. As a young adult, Shriya's adventurous spirit led her to a life at sea, working on cruise ships. It was a job that allowed her to travel the world, but it was on one of these voyages that she found her anchor, meeting her future husband, Bruce Klorfine. Their connection led to marriage and another major life change, a relocation to Canada. Settling in Toronto, she built a successful career as a fashion purchaser for the Fairweather women's apparel line. To the outside world, she was living a comfortable, settled life, but the dream of Sagamatha, the goddess of the sky, never faded. In the spring of 2012, Shriya decided the time had come to turn her dream into reality. She signed on with an expedition headed by Utmost Adventure Trekking. The choice of outfitter was a critical one. Utmost was, by all accounts, a startup. The firm had never successfully guided a client to the summit of Everest, a fact that would give experienced climbers pause. Established companies with proven track records often have stringent experience requirements and long waiting lists. For an aspiring climber without a deep mountaineering resume, a newer, more eager company can seem like an accessible gateway. Shriya's decision was reportedly bolstered by a recommendation from family connections in Nepal, placing trust in personal ties over a proven safety record. Shah-Klorfine dedicated 2 years to preparing her body for the immense physical challenge. Her training regimen consisted of running to build endurance and indoor rock climbing for strength. But Everest demands more than just fitness. It requires a specific, hard-won skill set, proficiency with ice axes and crampons, the ability to navigate treacherous glacial terrain, and, most importantly, experience managing one's body in the extreme, oxygen-starved environment of high altitude. Crucially, she had not ascended any other prominent peaks. Before this expedition, Shah-Klorfine had minimal real-world mountaineering experience. Her attempt to conquer the world's highest mountain would, in reality, be her first true mountaineering test. The expedition company's plan was to teach her these essential skills on the mountain itself during the acclimatization period. However, reports from the trek to base camp and the initial rotations through the Khumbu icefall were concerning. Despite performing poorly and moving slowly during this month-long training period, her resolve remained unshaken. She was convinced that her determination alone could carry her to the summit.
I spoke with her and she kept repeating, "I can do it, I can do it, I can do it."
As the expedition progressed, the difficulties mounted. Multiple reports from fellow climbers and guides indicated that her speed was noticeably and dangerously slower than her peers. This raised serious concerns about her ability to handle the grueling conditions of a summit push, where timing is critical to safety. In a particularly telling and ominous development, the company's most experienced Sherpa guide, a veteran of the high Himalayas, strangely declined to accompany her any higher than base camp, citing his concerns about her pace and preparedness. His refusal to guide her on the upper mountain was a significant red flag. Despite these warnings, the summit attempt went ahead. On the evening of May 18th at 7:30 p.m., Shah-Klorfine began her final ascent from Camp 4 on the South Col. She was accompanied by two less experienced Sherpa guides. As she and her team made their way up into the darkness, they encountered Ganesh Thakuri, the owner of Utmost Adventure Trekking, who was on his descent from the summit. The encounter was a pivotal moment. Thakuri, an experienced climber himself, immediately observed that Shah-Klorfine was struggling and that her oxygen supply seemed worryingly low for that stage of the climb. He strongly attempted to persuade her to abandon her ascent and turn back. She, however, was resolute. She refused to turn around. Faced with her determination, Thakuri made a fateful decision. He gave her his own final spare bottle of oxygen and allowed her to continue climbing toward the summit, into the upper reaches of the death zone. As night turned into the long, cold morning of May 19th, Shah-Klorfine's condition deteriorated. Her strength was being relentlessly sapped by her prolonged stay at such an extreme altitude, an environment mountaineers call the death zone for its inability to sustain human life for long. Her body was shutting down. Recognizing the extreme danger, her Sherpa guides repeatedly advised her to turn around well before she had reached the summit. But the peak was now tantalizingly close, and she insisted on getting to the top. Fueled by the dream she had held for over 2 decades, she kept going. At 2:20 p.m. on May 19, 2012, after an astonishing 22 hours of continuous climbing from Camp 4, Shriya Shah-Klorfine finally realized her lifelong ambition. She stood on the summit of Everest. At 29,032 feet, she was on top of the world. In that moment, she became the first South Asian woman from Canada to achieve the feat. But the summit is only halfway. Her celebration was brief, a few moments to take photos, her body already pushed far beyond its limits. As she began the perilous journey down, it was immediately clear that she was profoundly exhausted. Her oxygen consumption had been far higher than anticipated, a result of several compounding factors. Her slow pace meant she was on the ascent for much longer than planned. She had started using her supplementary oxygen earlier than is typical, and she had kept it at a high rate of flow to compensate for her struggles. The inevitable consequence was that high on the mountain, she eventually ran out of oxygen. Without oxygen, her body gave out completely. Despite the desperate efforts of her Sherpas, who tried to physically support her, half carrying and half dragging her down the treacherous slopes and urging her to continue moving, she collapsed. She was unable to support her own weight, unable to take another step. Her final words were a plea, but at that altitude, with no oxygen and no strength left, rescue was impossible. After 27 grueling hours of continuous climbing, she succumbed to exhaustion and altitude sickness. She passed away at around 10 p.m. that night. Her journey ended at 27,560 feet on a feature known as the Balcony, a small plateau on the southeast ridge of Mount Everest. She was 33 years old.
Russell Bryce, a highly respected and seasoned Everest guide, publicly criticized Utmost Adventure Trekking in the aftermath. He pointed out that the oxygen deficit she encountered was not an unforeseeable accident, but a failure of logistics. He claimed that the outfitter provided enough oxygen to get to the top of Everest, but critically, not enough for a slow climber to make it safely back down. The plan lacked the necessary contingency for a worst-case scenario.
The difficult and dangerous task of recovering Shah-Klorfine's body from the death zone took about 10 days. A special team of 7 Sherpas was assembled for the mission, risking their own lives to bring her down. Her body was eventually carried off the mountain and flown to Kathmandu, the city of her birth, where her cremation took place. The tragic death of Shah-Klorfine, along with several others in that crowded 2012 season, ignited a firestorm of debate. It prompted a more extensive and urgent discussion about the ethics of guiding inexperienced individuals up Everest. It called into question the fundamental duty of expedition companies to prioritize the safety of their clients above summit success. And it highlighted the desperate need for increased regulation to manage the dangerous crowding on Everest's upper slopes, where delays can be fatal. Shriya's story became a case study in what can happen when ambition, commercial pressures, and inexperience converge in the world's most unforgiving environment. It serves as a somber reminder that the mountain always has the final say. May she find rest in peace.